That battle took place here in the market square. It's a lovely sunny day today. Current temperature is about 19 degrees and the forecast is for 27 degrees. I think summer is finally here in England in 2025. Actually in the market town of St Neots. I'm going to take a walk around the town today, find the old police cells which are now housed part of the St Neots Museum, and also find a location linked to a battle during the English Civil War. But St Neots is it's quite a beautiful market town, named after the 9th century monk called St Neot, whose bones were brought to the town, or to the priory in the town, from Cornwall back in around the year 980 AD. And his feast day is the 31st of July. He's the patron saint of fish. I guess somebody has to be the patron saint of fish. There are many saints, some well known and some less well known, who have unusual patronages. And I think St Neot is one, being the patron saint of fish. There are a couple of people who could call St Neots their home. John Bellingham was born here in 1769. He's probably somebody you haven't heard of, but you do know what crime he committed, because he famously killed a former Prime Minister, Spencer Perceval, at the Houses of Parliament on the 11th of May 1812. He was hanged the following week for that crime. And the aviator Winifred Croswell Fair, well, she was born here on the 6th of January 1906, and she was one of the 8 women pilots who volunteered for join the Air Transport Auxiliary back in 1940, and she was the first woman to fly the Hawker Hurricane. And the Air Auxiliary did absolutely sterling work, ferrying aircraft from the manufacturers direct to the squadrons during the Second World War. Many of their pilots went on to actually fly for squadrons as well. They really were the unsung heroes of the aviation during the Second World War. We're standing here on this old bridge, and it really is absolutely delightful up here. See the river and the church in the background, and that's where I'm going to head over to now, because it really is a very old and very beautiful church. So let's wander across there and take a look, and we'll see what else we can discover here in St Neots on the way up to the old market square and the location for that battle during the English Civil War. I've only walked a few feet away from that old bridge, and already I've spotted a blue plaque on the wall here. Let's just see who this one is honouring. Sammy Hawkesford, 1874 to 1966. Lived here at 16 Brook Street. He was a basket maker, chorister and bell ringer at St Mary's Church, which is a big church behind me. Parish clerk and sexton for 65 years. And according to the plaque, he never missed a service. And it's estimated he attended 3,250 baptisms, 1,750 weddings, and 6,250 funerals. There's dedication for you, for parish life. That's an impressive record. But there again, if you dedicate your life to the church, as many church wardens and others do, then yes, you're going to have an impressive record like that, especially over a 60-odd year period. Absolutely wonderful. Well, I can see just down here, actually, there's another blue plaque on the wall. So let's go and see who this one is attributed to. This plaque refers to Old Hall Place, the that once stood on this location back in 1773, but it was demolished. Only these gates and the actual wall now remain. Looking at these gates, they really are quite splendid. So you can imagine what the building must have been like before it was pulled down in 1773. Well, the house was once owned by the Y family in the 16th century, and after that by the Pullen family. After Robert Pullen died in 1748, the Bell founder, Joseph I, discovered an elaborate 12th century casket in the house. It was made in Limoges in France, and it became known as the St. Neots Chase. It's one of the earliest examples showing the martyrdom of Thomas à Becket, the former Archbishop of Canterbury. And that chase is now held in the Victoria and Albert Museum. This is a very fine piece. I do remember seeing that some years ago. But across the road is St. Mary's Church. The Church of St. Mary the Virgin really is absolutely beautiful. Quite a magnificent building. The earliest church on the site was built around the 12th century, and it underwent renovation in the 15th century. The tower was completed in 1530 and stands 130 feet high, about 40 metres, and contains a peal of 8 bells. Stained glass windows inside are probably some of the best that I've come across in this area. They really are absolutely magnificent, and they were installed between 1859 to 1904, and they tell the story of Jesus' life. What gets my interest inside is the font. It's probably as old as the church, but I think it may be a little older, actually looking at it. It does have a rather Norman feel about it, and I suspect it may have been made for a priory or a monastery in the area, and perhaps found its way here unexpectedly and never made its final destination. But the carving on this on the outside and the pattern really is quite splendid and quite unlike any other font that I've seen in an English parish church. But it's very peaceful here, walking around in the early morning. A little breezy, but very, very pleasant indeed. I've enjoyed my walk so far. There's just so much of interest. I've very literally just walked across the road. That's all I've done this morning. There's just so much to see here. And here is the War Memorial, looking very splendid. It's unveiled in 1925 and commemorates those who died in the First and the Second World War. 76 in the First World War and 22 in the Second. The names of the brave are very visible and still readable on the front of the memorial. Absolutely wonderful. And there's another little statue here made of poppies, depicting a soldier standing by his boots with his pack and his trusty Lee Enfield 303 and his kit box as well. Very nice to see that. It really is nice the way they've presented this war memorial. It really is quite splendid to look at. And we should always remember those who died in the First and the Second World War and in all conflicts since, who gave their lives so that we can all be free today. Nice little gardens here. It's obviously well kept. The memories of those departed are still cherished by the town. But just next to the War Memorial is looks like an outbuilding. I dare say it might have been a house at one time, but it's seen better days, but it adds to the character of this little back street. It's quite pleasant down here actually. Lovely old cottages on the left hand side. this goes down towards the high street. It's nice walking down these little back streets because you never know what you're going to find. And there's a modern building here as well. That's different. That's quite different. Looks like a shipping container. It looks a little bit out of place in this back street, but I dare say it's there for a reason, or built for a reason. Modern architecture. Yeah, it doesn't blend with the old, but it's nice here. It really is. My first impressions of St Neots are really rather nice, especially on a sunny day like today. But there's an old building just here. Looks like it's a Tudor building in origin, 15th, maybe 16th century. Looks quite splendid looking up at it, the old windows and the wooden panelling on the front. Really rather nice. But let's have a walk around and see what else we can discover here on the way down to the market square. We'll try and find the museum and those old police cells. Museum. It's housed in the town's former Victorian police station. It's also where the Magistrates Court used to be as well. The Magistrates Court no longer exists inside. The interior has long since been removed, but the old police cells are still inside. So let's go and take a look. It's quite incredible here because the old police cells are still actually here in the building. It's one of the real gems of visiting local museums. There's things like this. There are 3 cells here. Only one of them is actually open to the public. It's quite strange being in a prison cell. Now, back in about 1800, there were 200 offences for which somebody could be sent to the gallows. But by 1900, this was reduced down to 4. And there are incidences around the country and in London where boys have been sentenced to the gallows for stealing bread. And they were aged about 7 to 10 years old. And they didn't really have a fair trial either. It was just decided by a magistrate in a few moments. Is that what life was like for a criminal back then? But punishment was strict in Victorian times. Around 1830, 1880, people of all ages could have found themselves in cells like this, and then walked next door into the magistrate's court to hear their fate. And you can see the bed here, which the prisoners would have lay on. It doesn't look very comfortable, but again, it's not designed for comfort. And you can see on the wall here, the information boards which tell about the various prisoners who would have been here and the crimes that they've committed. There are quite a few people who are mentioned on the information boards. Now, one of them was George Hildeley, and in 1876 he was convicted of stealing 2 sheep, 1 lamb and 15 pounds of meat, and he was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment at Pentonville Prison in London, and a further 5 years of home supervision, sort of a type of parole. Today we use electronic tags, but they did a lot in those days back on trust. We had to report to the local police station at regular intervals to show they were at home, or they had regular visits from the constable to prove they were at home during their time of supervision. And he could have been sentenced to death or transported to the colonies if he had committed those crimes 50 years earlier. So crime has come a long way since those days. By contrast, in 1877, Frederick Clark appeared at the Petty Sessions Court accused of stealing 2 rabbits. He was aged just 14 at the time, but he was sentenced to 14 days hard labour plus 12 strokes of the birch. I guess that punishment was meant to be a punishment back then. Nobody wants to have 12 strokes of the birch, especially when you're 14 years old. But did it stop him reoffending? I'd like to think so. But today they would just get a community service order, if that. But crime and punishment was brutal throughout history, and there are so many accounts, as I say, around the country of young boys being sent to the gallows. But while the prisoner was here, they would have been allowed some exercise time. And there's an exercise yard just round here. So let's go through and walk down here and into the exercise yard. And this is the prison exercise yard. Prisoners would have been allowed their daily exercise. And they would have just walked around, just as I'm doing now, for their allocated time. You see on the roof there's bars to stop people escaping. You can see the back of the windows from the cells. And the bars there. It's pretty bleak in here, it really is. This part of the museum is not normally open to the public, and the museum have given me special permission to come in here and take a look. But it's quite interesting actually. I've never been into a prison exercise yard like this. They do exist in other museums, but normally they're either off limits or only open at special occasions. I think this one is open on special occasions, but it's nice to be allowed in here to have a look around. Yeah, interesting. Let's walk through the rest of the museum and see what we can find here. Then head across the way to the Market Square. Market Square. Oh, what a beautiful day it's turning out to be. I think the forecast was right, at around 27 degrees. I think it feels a little warmer as well. But it's nice here, and this square is newly refurbished as well. Council spent a lot of time and money making this look nice. They hold markets here and other events as well, the Christmas fairs. It's nice looking up at the buildings. There's one here with a date of 1831 on the front. These buildings have been here for quite a while. I imagine it's been a focal point of the town for many, many years. But it's the events that occurred here in 1648 during the English Civil War which interest me the most. and a group of around 300 royalist soldiers, led by the Earl of Holland and Colonel John Dalbier, retreated to St Neots and planned to spend the night in the town. In the early hours of the 10th of July, the forces of Oliver Cromwell, his new model army, commanded by Colonel Adrian Scroop, arrived in St Neots and attacked soldiers as they slept in a surprise attack. That battle took place here in the market square. Many royalists were killed, including Colonel Dalbier, and many others were taken prisoner. The Earl of Holland fled the market square with his guards to the nearby New Inn, and it's said that he haunts the pub to this day. The New Inn is now called the Coach House, and it's a prominent pub here on the High Street. There are a few old photographs which show this market square during the First World War. Soldiers lined up with their artillery pieces. Must have been quite an impressive sight to see, all those brave young men heading off to the Western Front in France. Back in 1645, King Charles I passed through St Neots, and I'm sure that one or two of the buildings here on the market square may well have been around at that time. Certainly the old Falcon pub was. It's an old 15th century coaching inn, closed in 2010, but there are plans to bring it back into use, either as a hotel or as a bar and restaurant. It would be nice if that was to happen, especially as it's quite a large building. Shame to see it not used. I've had a really enjoyable time here in St Neots, just wandering around, looking at the sights and visiting this market square. And of course the police station, the old police station, now St Neots Museum, was just absolutely fascinating to see. And those galleries upstairs really were superb. And if you're in the St Neots, in the area, then you should call into the museum. You won't be disappointed. It really is absolutely excellent. But this is where I end the video, so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow my journey in this country and abroad, because there's plenty of content on my channel to watch and plenty more coming soon. Thanks for watching.